Talk Show. Recorded live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show, a service of the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website. This is the January 17th, 2014 edition. My name is William Hayashi. I'll be your host. I'm a novelist, I'm a screenwriter, and other things that we won't discuss. Tonight we have our special guest is STARR RAY, and he has an impressive list of credentials behind him. I don't even know where to start, but I'll tell you what, welcome, STARR. Good to actually hear from you and get you on the show. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me on the show, man. Black Sci-Fi, man. It's all good.
It's our pleasure. And to just start out, when you describe yourself to people and introduce yourself to people, what do you tell them that you are or that you do? Because you've got so many things you do. You're an illustrator, an artist, a caricaturist. You do digital, you do analog. You're a songwriter, producer, arranger, clothing designer, whatever. How do you describe yourself when you have all of those kinds of skill sets behind you?
You know what? I describe myself. This word that was given to me actually in a dream. The word is an imaginator. It's an imaginist. Okay. I would say I'm more so an imaginist. Because I take on projects and I really try to express the muscle of the imagination and just to bring out whatever the project may be. So I think that might sum it up to a little bit of down to a little bit of science to it a little.
No, that's perfect. And the other thing is, we have a tendency to discount how people self-identify, which is, that's bad practice anyway. Like Mike Tyson telling us he's a singer. Who are we to? Well, no, we are the people to judge. That was a bad example. I apologize on that one. But you go ahead and to say that you're an imaginist is, it's very descriptive, and it does really describe somebody who takes whatever goes on around him and expands it, maybe even pulls some essence out that normally other people might overlook. That's my view of how you just described yourself, and quite frankly, that's pretty intriguing. Where? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. Oh no, thanks.
And let me ask you this: where did you grow up? You're coming to us now from kind of like the L.A. area, right?
You know what? Only Southern California, County, and yeah.
And where did you grow up?
Okay. Oh, I grew up in Central Valley. I grew up down in the area. I actually grew up on a farm down in the area of Visalia, Porterville, Bakersfield. It's called the Central Valley. It goes all the way up through from Bakersfield all the way up through like Stockton, Sacramento area, parts of Northern California. So we're like right in the middle between L.A. and between Northern California. So it's called the Central Valley. I grew up personally, down in that area back in Easton, where I went to high school, and Fresno, California, which we call No Town. So I'm from that area out there, man. I'm from right in the middle, smack in the middle. I'm not sure if you guys know Fox 26 has a main station right there in Visalia, California.
Mm-hmm. And did you? You grew up there. Did you go anyplace else? Have you been there most of your life?
You know what? Yes, I left there. I did a lot of work there. I think about it coming on the road, actually, from high school on down. And we would go, touring and doing different shows. And so when I left in 2000, I think it was like maybe late 1999, early 2000, I went to Southern California and established, Imagination Station Studios and started trying to really get into expanding what I was doing down in the Central Valley area.
And how old were you when you started doing this?
Oh, man. You talking about the drawing? Oh, man. I started drawing when I was at least about 6 years old. I had always been doodling, but I really got really into characters and stuff when I was little, right around 6 years old. And I really liked cartoons. I really liked the whole world of imagination and stuff like that. And it kind of spawned into a whole slew of things after that. My grandmother put me in a contest when I was 6 years old for the newspaper out there. It's called the Fresno Beat. And it's a huge city newspaper that covers that whole Central Valley. And so she put me in a contest. I drew a little picture of Bugs Bunny and all of that, and it won. And so that she kind of inspired me to really kind of go in that direction as far as my purpose is concerned.
Mhm. So, I mean, a lot of people start out early. A lot of people said, well, you know, I've been an artist since I was, you know, since I could pick up a crayon. And it sounds like you started out early, and your grandmother not only supported you, but she even kind of got you some exposure.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did. Yes, she did. She you know, she was the one. I was raised by her majority of my life, and so my mom inspired me in certain ways as far as like different things with music and stuff like that, exposing me to various groups and bands. And my dad, I didn't grow up all my years with my dad, and so my stepfather and I had my godfather and my uncle who took a big, investment in my life. He was real close with my grandmother, so that kind of led to them kind of help guide me into what was I going to do with this talent.
Right, and so, okay, so that's early. That's elementary school. I mean, did you kind of carry it through as you got older, like into high school?
You know what? Yes, I did. When I did it when I was young, I kept starting to do like my drawing, like different stuff I saw on television, and I would follow cartoons, and that led into I used to go around the neighborhood when I got around 9 or 10, and I started painting on the windows for the holidays of everybody in the neighborhood, which was also inspired by, my grandmother and my uncle. And so that led to, I was doing I knew all the characters, so I would do all these characters that people wanted specifically on their windows for Christmas, like you see at McDonald's and all of that. And so that was giving me the opportunity to really develop my skills as an artist, but also to still do cartoons and characters. I've always been, even realizing later on in my life now, I see that characters have always been kind of my fulcrum of everything I've done and what really fires me up. And so I went on into doing that, got into high school, but now as I was getting into junior high, that's when I got further into music. I used to be in a singing group that I started that went from, just practicing in the garage, man, in the front yard, all the way up to opening for Tony. I got into the music business. I got into the record business, and at a very young age, even during high school.
So where, let's bring this back, to local relevance. Where did the whole sci-fi bent of your creative bent? Where did the whole sci-fi aspect come in for you?
It was comic books and toys. I love comic books. I used to buy, I would save up my money. I was always the kid in the family who would always have money stashed away somewhere. And so I started buying all these comic books and started actually, buying my toys. I would use my allowance for these kind of things. And that led to, drawing all of these characters and really inspiring, what I liked about this character, what I liked about that character. And my cousins, who were older, they exposed me to comic books. And so they were 5, 6 years older than me. I was kind of in the middle. So that opened me up to the Hulk and all of these characters that I would start buying the comic books. It was like when I first started buying the comic books, they were less than $1 or whatever they were. And I just started stacking them up. And the toys were kind of like my fourth dimension of what was coming out of the comic book. So every night, man, I mean, like religiously, I'd be really reading comic books, man, and the stories and who's going to win. And then me and my brother and my cousins be like, hey, who could beat who? And it turned into where it was like a combat sport where what character would beat what character. And that kind of led more into, my imagination with the sci-fi world. And it opened up my mind to understanding what these worlds were kind of about, I would say.
And how they were constructed and to what purpose they were.
Exactly. I mean, who knew? Even back then, man, I used to imagine if they were to do a movie on this character in comic books and this movie on this character. You know what I'm saying? I grew up on some of the Marvel stuff, and you know, I like a lot of different characters. I was a huge Transformers fan, and so that kind of did it for me.
You know, and I have to admit, a little bit of what you're talking about kind of depresses the hell out of me because, you know, you talk about comic books. No, you talk about comic books were under $1. When I was growing up, comic books were 12 cents.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
See now, but a quick aside. Let's see. I think it was about 20 years ago. I went and found a box of comics at my folks' house before they moved to the next place they were going to move. And I grabbed them and I put them all, each one in their own individual bag. And I have like a #1 shield. I've got some stuff in there. And a while ago, back when I was married, my then wife went online and found out what the value of all of them were, you know, assuming they were in decent shape. And so even back then, I had something like $3,500 worth of comics. I mean, that's the other thing about comic collecting that people often forget, especially parents. Parents don't think, you know, they think, you know, clean this crap up, or why are you always reading that, or whatever. And they don't realize that there's an intrinsic value to comics that is often overlooked, especially at the time. But later on, you know, it comes right out. So
That's
yeah,
true.
I'm a little depressed that they were 12 cents when I was growing up, and they were like $1 when you were growing up. But I'll manage through that. So you got into these characters, okay, and you got into the, you know, it sounds like you kind of work through the universe, you know, and while you're doing that, did you have like kind of like that awakening where you realized you could be the creator?
You know what? That's an interesting question, man. It's actually a very powerful one. What happened for me was I didn't really start doing my own characters seriously until over maybe the last 12 years maybe. But what happened when I was doing them, when I was little, I was doing little side comic books that I would make when I would take the paper and staple the sides of it to make my own books. And they were little fun characters that I made and little stories that I was doing. But you know what? I had not really taken serious the aspect of my own characters because I was so into the cartoons and what I was drawing of whatever else was out there. And so, you know what? Actually, it dawned on me the strongest when I started getting more into doing my own stories about 12 years ago. I didn't really, and I go back and I look, and I'll just be real with you, man. I go back, I look at some of my books I stapled together and stuff that was kept and stuff like that, and that shows me that I was kind of already doing it, but it just wasn't that epiphany of like, you know what, STARR RAY Characters Universe. It hadn't come like that yet. And I think the music helped bring it out to where it is now.
So there was a bridge between the creativity in music that actually kind of spilled over and kind of pushed the process for you with your drawing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It was because see, I like the stories and the art, but I like sound effects. I like music. You know, music. It just kind of like carries a lot of what's going to be going on, especially the dialogue and how it's said and how it's done. And that's what got me heavy into, you know, the overall. It's like, well, what's the whole package? I mean, do you get the pictures and the words? And when I would read the comic books, I was so into music and art and cartoons that I would hear all that in my head even if there was no music playing. And just because off the imagination of, oh, this guy's getting knocked through the building, boom, boom, did all these things were like downloaded in my head. So I definitely can say that, man.
Man. And that's pretty cool. And so about how old were you? I mean, was that like high school age when you started propelling the creativity, or a little bit after that? You know, it sounds like you were quite the entrepreneurial early bloomer.
Right. Yeah, that's true. It was, it was about, when I really got heavy into the characters, I would say around maybe my late teens, right? I think it was right after my group broke up, right after we didn't sign with Motown. We went through a period where, you know, I got back into my art. I wasn't on the road as much, and I started drawing more and stuff like that. It started kind of budding more so then. You know, then I got up and got a job, you know, and I was working at Motown. But I was in a division that had everything to do with art and characters. So I could do music and still do my art. So it was like, I would say about my late teens, somewhere around there, you know, early 20s, somewhere around there. And then it really got more serious. I think when the era came in, when they had more so like a lot more animation and special effects was coming into effect.
And what about from a character development perspective? You know, being right there when all of that's being developed, you know, what did you think about? I mean, the scope of the characters. You know, black characters, white characters, early superhero type characters. I mean, what kind of impact did that have on you, kind of from a racial dichotomy?
You know what? When I was doing copies of other characters, and I was doing myself, I was actually coloring all the faces black, and so I made my own black Spider-Man or whatever. I would make black versions of these characters, the ones where their faces were showing, and so it was always there, but I didn't know about the the context in terms of, hey, this character is this and this character is that. I guess because I was into so many different aliens, and I was into robots, and I was into all these different other kind of characters where you didn't really know what race they were. And so for me, every time I naturally, just naturally, man, just on genetics, I was making all my characters look like me. I was reshaping them. And this is even before I had launched the STARR RAY Characters universe. And all of that played a role into what I'm doing now and what I've done over the last, 10 or 12 years or so. You know, and that was the whole fun about it. It was being able to, create a character and still have the essence of the soul that I know that I'm about and where I come from in the character without dragging down the story, but yet at the same time telling a different kind of story from a different kind of imaginational standpoint.
So here you are, at that age, and already, I mean, obviously, most artists copy first. Okay, when you're younger, you copy Bugs Bunny, like you said. You copy this, you copy that. But then, you're, like you said, your own internal identity brought these people to the forefront in your art in a way where you were reimagining them as people who looked like you.
Absolutely. And I like that word you used, my brother, reimagine. I love that because that's exactly what was going on, but that process is what really made me like kind of mature in that diaspora, in that aspect of things. Even you can take a character and make them black, but what type of black character would it be? What type of black character? How do they talk? How do they walk? What do they say? What kind of music do they like? That's the part that's really the kicker for me.
So you're looking at, not only are you looking at the fact that there is race identity, but you even were looking at the sociology of creating those characters of that of being black.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Because even now, there's some black characters that I'm into. Like even certain of the major companies, the big dogs. Some of their characters, they're black. You know what I'm saying? But they're done black in a way how they see black, and so black is diverse, yet it still has the same roots and different kind of black people. Like I see some characters out there, man, that are like highly Afrocentric, and I think that's tight. There's characters out there that are highly commercial, which I think is cool too, depending on what it is. But at the bottom line, and at the end of the day, it's what is that character about as a black character? What type of perspective is that character coming from as a black character, and who's writing that black character? What are they putting in there? And so I look at those things, man. That especially now. I mean, like when I look at Blade, I'm like, when I saw Blade, that was it for me, man. I was like, you know what? I saw Blade and Wesley. That was it, man. That really gave me the idea in terms of infiltrating that, pressing forward on the whole concept of this. If you're going to do a certain type of character, you might as well do it all the way. I mean, what better way to make a character, you know, that's going to be the full-fledged of whatever genre it's in. You know, Blade is in a totally different genre than Star Trek, you know, but we still need black cultural Star Trek type characters. That's what I like about black sci-fi.
Yeah, but I mean, we talk about this on the show periodically because, of course, we talk about, you know, the entomology of black characters in sci-fi. We talk about where they existed in American culture. And you know, for you to bring up Star Trek is always one of my funny ones because, you know, in Star Trek, with the exception of the communications officer, and someone makes a joke about, yeah, they had to have the black person always on the phone hollering at somebody and had the Asian running the ship into trouble all the time. So
that's right.
The thing is that up until a certain time, up until Star Trek, really there were not that many imaginings of black people in a futuristic or a science fiction setting. And my contention was because they didn't plan for us to be here.
You know what? You took it out of my mouth.
Well, you know, or the other message in Star Trek was, yeah, we got black folks, but you know they're gonna be dead before the first commercial.
That's true. That is, oh man, brother, you you sing it to the man. You hitting the nail on the head, man. That's, hey, tell the truth to shame the devil, as they say.
Yeah, and then you know, we all have, you know, observations about how American culture kind of misrepresents. It pretty much misrepresents everything. I mean, if you look at any movie today, and you try to look at that movie as some sort of an example of what our culture really is, you know, they're all just gross distortions.
That's right. That's true. Yes, sir.
So where do you how do you reimagine an environment, a speculative universe, a batch of characters, a community? You know, where does the reimagining of that? What's the kind of like the entomology of the reimagining of that in terms of, you know, those characters being true to life, three-dimensional black folks?
You know what? Specifically for Star Ray Characters Universe, you know, the storyline that I have and I'm currently developing is the new world. It's the new world. And what it is, it's actually in the future. It's not too far in the future, and it's not too far, you know, not too close to now. It's close enough. And so in that story and in that world, what's going on is it's a whole nother perspective of a collective of what all the different things I've experienced and that I've seen not done and things that I've seen that are done in the imaginating world of movies and stories or whatever, to the point to where I was like, you know what, I'm going to have this character. And it's a cast of, you know, it's a cast of wonderful, diverse colors in the story. But the main character, you know, is a black character. Okay? And that character encompasses some of what, you know, I don't see out there in the movies. It encompasses integrity, a responsible person. It encompasses no stereotypes. You people wouldn't even be really, the movies would be received and people wouldn't be able to really tell, what kind of idea that would be behind this character because they haven't even really been used to it yet. But it's so done in a way it's very acceptable. It's very acceptable, and because like kids we test marketed the book to, they've gotten so into the story and what's going on. Not just kids. I'm not just going to say kids. I take that back. Kids and families who have actually bought into the idea of the preview. No one ever says, hey, he's a black guy. No one ever says, hey, he's black. No one ever says that. And that lets me know that the character has all the makings that go back to the legendary ancestors, and all that stuff is there. But I think that it's more so expressing it in a different way to where it's like, we know where we've been. Now, where are we going to go with that? What is the legacy that we're going to do from that is what this story is based upon as far as the character and all the characters involved. I mean, responsible and all of those things, but also where even though we evolve as a people, we still deal with human things that go with that dichotomy. So that's the part that I think I did pretty cool with blending together because it's a very acceptable thing. It's not overly commercial, but yet it's not overly urban either. But at the same time, it doesn't leave out the legacy. And actually, that's matter of fact, that's really in the front. It shows the legacy of what we've done with what we have been put before us from our ancestors and people who have went before us.
Well, the part B to that, which is even more important, is that when you create believable three-dimensional characters, oftentimes color just gets lost because people buy into the character itself. Without going, oh, that's a black person. Oh, that's an Asian person. Oh, you know what I'm saying? Very much like in life, when most people meet me, they're surprised that I am biracial, but then very, very shortly after that, everybody forgets about that. I mean, like your friends don't go, oh, that's Black STARR RAY. They just go, that's STARR RAY.
That's right. That's true. That's
you know what I'm saying?
True. Yeah, that's true.
When you create characters that reflect the reality of people that other people know, I think that color becomes less important.
That's true. That's very true. Yes, sir. It's very true. Yes, it does.
We have a couple people in the chat room. Two early examples were like in the TV show The Land of the Giants. They had a brother in there who was one of the crew. He wasn't black guy hanging out. You know what I mean? And then the other one was Greg, or excuse me, was it? No, I forget his name. Greg Morris in Mission Impossible. Was that his name, Greg Morris? Well, anyway, so these are people who transcended color because they ignored it. They were characters who, well, even what was the first one? Julia on TV. This is way before your time, man. But we had a single black mother for whom most of the plots didn't revolve around color at all. It revolved around her being a nurse, her son, her relationship with her boss. And so I think that when you create three-dimensional characters that reflect a reality and a sociology that we understand, even if it's different, but if it's consistent and it's not B.A. Baracus on the A-Team, that people will be more likely to buy into the characters. And that's one of the things that I try to express to other writers when they talk about, well, I want to do this, I want to write a black story. And my advice is write a good story, but make the characters black.
I totally agree. 110, my brother. I totally agree with that. That's absolutely the key because it's still all about is it going to be a good story? I think that's the focus, and it should be the focus because the characters are in the story. Man, you hit the nail on the head with that.
Thank you. Hang on a second. You're listening to the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show, a service of the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website. This is the January 17th, 2014 edition, and we're talking to a long list of accolades and credentials, STARR RAY. Where's the best website for people to catch up with, to take a look at what you would consider some of your maybe more significant work?
They can go to www.star-raycharacters.wix.com, or they can simply search engine STARR RAY Characters Supernaturals. They can also search STARR RAY Tunes. You just put it in, and it'll come up, and our catalog will pop up. And they can also go to Facebook. We're under STARR RAY Characters Team, and they'll see characters from bears all the way up to sci-fi characters, whichever one they want to go to.
Very cool. And for people who are actually typing that in now, STAR is with 2 R's because somebody doesn't. Because somebody doesn't know how to spell. No, I'm just kidding.
No, you're right. Not that it'll walk. You're right. It's just articulated.
I mean, no, but I am kidding about that because people. That's another thing. People name themselves what they want to be named.
That's true.
And again, self-identification is something that we should pay attention to because when somebody tells you there's something, even if you think there's something else, who's right? Well, I think the person, unless the person's a real con man or something or pretending to be a radio personality in Chicago, what they say is very important because self-identification is a big part of especially creative people. So that's pretty cool.
That's right. And I agree with you on that, even on a business level, because when you're doing trademark and copyright, it's down to the exact spelling all the way across the board. You can misspell one thing and somebody else may have a trademark on it. I went through that whole process. That took me 4 years, man. So, yeah, STARR Ray is my real last name. STARR is my middle name. You know what I'm saying? Antonio is my first name. Yeah.
Hey, but it all works. Okay, so you're an artist. You are reimagining essentially white comic book characters. You're reimagining them as black people. And then you transitioned into, because of seeing, the kind of the exposure you had at Motown with the creative universe that they had, you started thinking about your own creative universe. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I sure did. From that point, I got more into there was a struggle going on. Was I going to do art? Was I going to do music? Did I want to tour some more? Did I want to continue singing or doing, positive, inspirational rap, hip hop? What did I want to do? And so that's why it took me. I went on hiatus for at least 4 or 5 years, just really locking that down to what is the vision. And so even myself, man, I pray, I meditate. I don't claim to be. I'm not really a spokesperson, but I do pray and I meditate, and I try to, do the right thing and treat people right. And that opened the door and gave me more clarity to it being the vision. So instead of, it used to be Ray's Tunes and Comics. That's when I first did my little first sole proprietor registration thing in 1994, 1996 or something. And then it turned into where it was STARR RAY Characters came later, but I was always signing as STARR RAY Characters. And so even on that side of things, it gave me a really good perspective on what's the vision. Because if I'm going to do STARR RAY Characters, how am I going to actually turn this into a living? How am I actually going to turn what I do? A lot of people, they get a lot of flack, man. And I didn't want to be one of those creators who didn't really understand the industry. And so when I'm I'm looking at movies, and I'm not seeing, us represented properly. It really was like an annoyance. I said, you know what? I'm going to start making some stuff that I want to see, that I think maybe 10 million other people feel the same way, and hopefully it'll crack. It'll launch. And that's kind of why I'm in that point.
I'm sorry, you dropped out a little bit there at the end. Hopefully, what?
Oh, I'm sorry. And that's where I kind of went from that point. There's just some stuff I was seeing, and I was seeing a lot of it. A lot of Tolkien black characters, and honestly, there's a lot of characters that are black and African American in the comic book world now, and over the last 10 years, 20 years, that I do not like at all. I'm not a big Luke Cage fan. I'm not a fan of Black Panther's cool. He's cool. You know what I'm saying? But he's not.
Right.
He's not Batman. I mean, not that Batman's better than him. It's just that whoever was putting the characters together, I could tell when someone's holding back to be able to let the other characters be the dominant society in the situation. How do we balance that out? That was my goal, to help balance that out and tell some stories that I don't even see, being told from people that actually write movies or whatever the case may be. It's the politics of it. I said, no, I'm just going to do what I feel and what's expressed inside of me, what I feel is my calling to even do STARR RAY characters. That kind of led me to that point.
So, okay. It sounds like you did something that very few creatives do. Some do, some don't. Most don't. You kind of looked at the business of doing business from the aspect of how does this move forward? How does one capitalize and monetize their creativity? And then, you already had the creative leanings, but you looked at the business perspective of it. So how did that shake out? What were some of the more important things that you were looking at from a business aspect? I mean, other than the obvious, like popularity. I want to have popular characters. I want, like you said, I want that 10 million people to latch on to what I have to offer. But from a business perspective, what were some of your early startup considerations?
You know what? That's an outstanding question. For me, I went backwards. I said, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I need to find out, because I'm not the guy who will run out in front of the camera. Even though I've been in entertainment, I was never really that guy. It just kind of came with the territory. So for me, it was like, popularity is one thing. Do you what they say? You want fame or the fortune? I said, well, I want both, but which one is the most important first? And so growing up, and being in the entertainment business and being in a singing group where I was the leader of the group, etc., I saw how it's still business. It's still 90%. To me, it's still 90% business. If you don't know how to capitalize on what you're doing, no one's telling you. I had a lot of lawyers slam the door in my face, industry people not wanting to give me certain information. I went through that in the music industry as well as the comic book and the art, as far as character industry. So I said, you know what? It's the same across the board, man. Really, I need to look at what is the real deal that's the bread and butter of this industry. Because people say, hey, STARR RAY, how are you doing this full time? I don't have a side job. I don't do any, I don't have, a side-time, full-time job, thank God. I haven't been able to have to do that in like 15, 16 years. But it was because of what we're talking about. I found out currently I'm getting royalties from songs that I wrote and co-wrote and helped produce on the radio, some stuff that I even did myself. So those royalty checks became an investment into STARR RAY characters. So I said, but still, how are people making bread and butter from cartoons and all of these things? I found out it was trademark, it was copyright, it was ownership of your creative work, intellectual property. So, man, even that within itself, bruh, that took me 36 months just getting into the science behind that. I felt like I was trying to become an attorney. You know what I'm saying? It got crazy, man. It was like, whoa, all of this going. But that really, I needed to go through that to understand how to not get beat in the industry, because I want to be in the industry. I don't want to just create and have someone else come and take all the riches and the wealth. I want to be able to capitalize off my characters and what I'm doing, all the way down to what's the real ownership, properties, how does that work? Who do you talk to? Who do you call? Oh, you just contact the government, blah, 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 blah. But people a lot of times don't want to steer you in that direction because they consider you competition. So for me, I said, you know what? It's going to be self-preservation, and I'm just going to go ahead and just go for it, just do the best I can do and be my own little business manager and just try to learn and sit still for a while and have some patience. And so that's what led me up to be able to form STARR RAY Characters Universe. That's why it's STARR RAY Tunes, Caricatures, and Supernaturals. Those are my properties that are coming from that entity.
So, but it sounds to me like, obviously, being in the entertainment industry, you got a view of business in a way that most people do not. You know, your average, let's say someone grew up like you did, but without the whole music thing, but they were a talented artist. They are not going to be exposed to the fact that somebody can take your ideas away from you if you don't protect your intellectual property. Most creatives don't learn about intellectual property until something bad has happened.
That's right. So, that is so true, bro. That's right.
You know, and so, I mean, you had a fortuitous maturation, which gave you at least a lookout for business early on. Which, you know, I can't imagine how that wasn't a very, very lucky circumstance. I mean, would you admit to that? I mean, because think about it. Excuse me. People have been screwing musicians. You know, ever since you know, they were selling Beethoven moldy bread instead of the good bread. But I mean, the thing is that, you know, let's look at this. What's his name? Who did Blurred Lines? What's that white boy's name? Robin Thicke?
Yeah, Robin Thicke, yeah.
And so he lifts, you know, elements of Got to Give It Up, things like that, and even to the extent of somebody's melody or a bass line or something like that, you can lose your creativity to somebody else who's just slicker than you. So, I mean, it's good that all that translated into, I have to protect my intellectual property when I make, you know, the supernaturals.
That's right. That's right, brother. That's right.
And a lot of people don't realize that if you're going to create something like that, it is 90-10. It's 90% do your damn business and do it well, and it's 10%, I hope I have time enough to finish this deadline, because the business part is the part that drives the whole engine. If you can't eat, if you can't pay your car note, if you can't pay your cell phone bill, you know, all the creativity in the world is probably not going to help you. So good on you for the whole. So good on you for all the business acumen that you have. All right, so you go ahead, you take this, excuse me, this kind of creative sabbatical, this output sabbatical, to figure out the whole business aspect of what you're going to do in order to monetize your ideas and to retain your own intellectual property. And what were some of the revelations that came to you? What were some of the things that kind of, you know, opened your eyes to how the whole game is played and the whole business model works?
You know what? One of the first ones I realized is you have to understand, you know, industry in terms of, like you said, man, you say some really key things, and we talk about this in our workshops we do with the Imagination Station. You know, we try to express to people that if you're going to do it full time, you can't be begging and knocking on doors, okay, but yet you don't know what kind of bank to put $1 million in. IRS will tear you up. So, see, that makes, for me, that's what keeps me real in what I do when I create, because that same realism transitions over into the business world. So really, it's like they say, it's fantastical ideas. Yes, it is, but it's got to be rooted And for me, this was my first revelation. It's got to be rooted in some real world context, because if not, people will take your ideas. I had a couple ideas taken from me by, one was a major church and one was another one. Thank God, I won the case, but I was halfway prepared because I had just started learning this, man. So for me, the second thing was, who's going to control the image? You do a deal with somebody. This happened when I was in my singing group. Who's writing the song? We go in. I was a part of the songwriting, and another guy in the group wanted to write too. Well, we're at the company. We're about to sign this major record deal, working with CBS. They say, who's now Epic, who says, hey, you guys ain't writing songs. STARR RAY is going to write a couple songs because he's already established himself as a writer in your group by the 2 songs you have on the radio that got you here. So in my group, that caused a certain level of division, I'm saying this to say it taught me up to that point that caused a certain division because a certain experience wasn't there for my other guy in the group who was a writer. And so the business aspect comes in again. The record company's telling you they're like your employee. So I'm able to write the song, cool, no problem, boom, boom, boom. I write with the other producer. We just getting to know this guy. The group is getting frustrated. The songs ain't fitting. That's the same context, my brother, that led over to the same thing with the characters and STARR RAY characters. Who is going to do what with the image? Who's going to put it on the shelf? What questions do you ask? Who owns the image? Who owns the color? What if they take the image and turn the character into a fancy? What if they turn the character into a soft person? It's supposed to be a hard character. See, all of those things, are packaged into intellectual property because it'll discourage the artist and the creator of what the original concept was supposed to be. So by the time you run it through a machine, the wrong machine, you end up with a whole other package at the end of the deal, and only 90% of it is theirs and 10% of it may be yours. So for me, my revelation was you got to keep it real. Like Ice Cube always said, you got to keep it real all across the board, man. Do business, but be real and honest about what you want and what you need, and everyone can win if you do business with them. You get that respect, and you just try to learn and grow from there.
One important thing that I learned late, my I can't support myself off my writing other job is I'm an IT guy, and I went to this guy and was fixing his computers because he was going someplace where they had naked people and he got infected. And the thing was, he had a cool sign on his wall. He said, it's not, you don't make what you deserve, you make what you demand. And that's the other thing that a lot of creatives have a hard time doing. They have a hard time saying, I deserve this for my creativity, but then they have to back it up. They feel that, I've created some things that are just fantastic. Nobody's ever seen them before. I should be raking in millions, but have yet to ask that question, or to make that demand. I believe I should be compensated by X, with this amount of compensation. So, I mean, the thing about being about the business of doing business is so important, even as a creative, because it all boils down to we would all love to be able to do our creative things and live off of them.
That's
but
right.
you can't do that unless you do your due diligence. You can't do that unless you put yourself out there. You can't do that unless you learn those fundamentals. And that joke about the brother who says, who's about to go to jail. Well, how come you, all this happened and you have to go to jail? He said, well, man, I was just too busy keeping it real. But the fact of the matter is, keeping it real is doing business the way people do business. And then there's those people who think, well, I don't want to do business like white folks. I'm going to do business the way I want to do business. And look at how many movie theaters across America that were owned by black folks who didn't want to pay their taxes.
That's
right.
That's
the other thing. There are rules to the game, and everybody has to play them, unless you're a super rich white guy, in which case the rules don't apply. But even that is a rule. No, I'm serious. Even that's a rule. That's a rule. People don't realize that. That's a rule out there. You can get away with that nonsense if you're a rich white guy, but if you're not, I suggest you pay your taxes.
That's right.
Here in Chicago, the Beanie Baby guy, I think he didn't pay something like $2 billion in taxes.
Oh,
okay?
My goodness.
And he got probation, 2 years probation, and he might have got a fine.
Oh, man, he was.
And I'm thinking about Wesley Snipes having to sit there and be one evil MF to keep folks from grabbing his booty for not paying his tax. You know, what kind of money could he have owed compared to this billionaire?
That's real talk, man. You know what? You're hitting so many good points, man. The stimulus is on. What you're saying about that, that's what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I mean. And the funny thing about it is that seriousness you're talking about is, see, it's funny because some of the other artists that I want to work with or other creative people, they actually turned away from me because I was so about business too. And that kind of made me kind of over off to the side because a lot of them, they're not bad people, so to speak, but they just weren't really thinking. I was too intense about understanding and wanting to make sure I can play the game enough to where I could be able to take care of all of what I need to do in my life, even after I pass away. And so even in that right, some creators turned off with a guy like me who starts talking about business. But to me, business is a culture within itself. And also, if you like to be successful, there's got to be some side of you that has to like business other than just getting a check. Because you can get a check, but it may not be the percentage that's owed to you. I mean, what is the percentage on every time your song is played on the radio? What are you supposed to get? What is your 25 cents, 50 cents? All of those questions. That's what I like about Michael Jackson. And I don't mean to go here, but it's just Michael Jackson still was at least a businessman. He was a very shrewd businessman, especially when I heard about him at Motown. And so that helped me as well. I see Michael, great performer, whatever, but I look at what kept him around for so long. What kept George Lucas around for so long? Why did they attack Wesley Snipes? You're saying all the things that actually excite me as well, because I want to make sure that I can do what I can do without going through certain things and still take care of business. I don't have to have all the money, but I mean, I got to have something. You know what I'm saying?
Don't tell anybody else, because I don't think anybody is listening to this show anyway, but don't tell anybody this secret. Here is the secret to success, okay? Are you ready? It's very simple. If you ever get two nickels to rub together and you don't watch every episode of VH1 Behind the Music, you deserve what you get, all right? Because every mistake that everybody who got some money for doing something, every mistake that could have possibly have been made has been on that damn show. You know, MC Hammer had to go back to church, okay? I don't even want to talk about the big list of people who have screwed their lives up because they thought they were smarter than everybody. You know, my favorite was this white guy who won the first Powerball, the first big multi-million-dollar Powerball. This was probably about 15, 20 years, I don't know, whenever it was. And he won, I think he took home $180 million, okay?
Oh,
$180 million, because it was like a 200 and some odd. So Primetime Live or, NBC, one of those evening news shows came to him 3 years later. 3 years later, he was bankrupt. How does that, and it's not a white thing, it's not a black thing, it's a stupidity thing. Or you listen to your friends drag your ass down. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, man, you just don't know, man. You know what? The side of what you're talking about, and I love those shows, Unsung, Life After. I'm actually a fan of those shows because it reminds me of what you're saying. You hitting the nail on the head in the sense of, man, do you know how many people, it's like, $180 million. Okay, cool. One thing, one another. Okay. Now, you have your character, you have your product, da-da-da-da-da. They're like, well, why are you trying to, people say, where have you been, STARR RAY? What have you been doing? You stopped making albums, you da-da-da-da-da-da. So I've been doing some things here and there, but they don't know I've been, like, trying to really learn what you're talking about, just to at least be able to protect the golden eggs. God give you golden eggs, at least try to protect them. And so I didn't want to be that guy, as much as I can, it's help it, be that guy who just gets ripped off. I mean, I met MC Hammer, met his mom, those people, and I was so shocked at the things that happened. I said, okay, I'm in the character industry, but it's still a business. It can't be STARR RAY tunes and comics. It's like, no, STARR RAY characters, because I'm not going to focus only on comics. I'm not going to focus. And doing the trademarks and the copyrights and working through all that stuff, I'm still working through it. Made me realize that was my strategy, was going to have to be STARR RAY characters. Do I want to be comics? Do I want to be movies? Whatever with the characters. People say, how are you going to live off of that, STARR RAY? How are you going to da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da? It was learning all of that process, and money couldn't pay me enough to learn the stuff that I learned. And I'm still learning, right. But just to be able to even surface my head to be on Black Sci-Fi, I was taking my time to really try to at least get some stuff down so I can go in there and play some ball, man, just to be honest with you.
Well, I'm pretty new to writing. I'll be honest with you. My first book was published in 2009. So here we are, 2014, and it looks like things may turn for me. But the thing that I've thought about is, for the last 5 years, I've been thinking, how will my life change? A lot of people just imagine, I'm going to make a whole lot of money, and I'm going to have, houses and women and, whatever they think, okay? But how many people think, well, you know what? If I get a score of $2 or $3 million, maybe I should buy an annuity that gives me $500,000 a year for the rest of my life. You will never hear those words come out of somebody's mouth who hasn't paid attention or done the kind of due diligence that you have done. Nobody's going to, if I win, let's say I win a $15 million lottery. Of course, I got to spend the money to make it, but I mean, still. Oh, and by the way, just a little for everybody out in the audience, I've actually done the math on Powerball and Mega Millions, and I calculated it out to, I don't know how many decimal places, but you have about the same chance of winning whether you play or not. Think about that before you spend your money.
Wow.
You do.
Wow.
I mean, you do. You have, 1 in 300 million. Anyway, and then they talk about, when I win the lottery, I'm going to get all that money all at once. And do what? Everybody's got dreams, but they don't do their due diligence. And in business, that's the kiss of death. If you don't do your due diligence, somebody will snatch what you have out from under you. There's a group, older group, Traffic, music group, and they have this song called "The Low Spark of High-Heeled Boys." And the greatest lyric in that entire song, and something people should think about, is the percent that you're paying is too high priced because you're living beyond all your means. And the man in the suit has just bought a new car with the profit he's made off your dreams. And truer words were never written as far as creatives going out and trying to monetize the fruits of their minds. And so, I mean, you provide such a great example for people to think about what you did to get where you are, because you don't get there by magic and you don't get there by accident.
That's true. That's very true. That's very true. And I appreciate what you're saying. And I can relate to being a creator, like yourself. You're a writer, too. And I can relate to even the listeners out there. I can relate to the creative side. It's not like you have to kill your artist, to make money to build your dreams. It's just they have to work hand in hand. It's like husband and wife, male and female. You have to have both entities to the best of your ability. Now, let's say, like for me, at first I was like, oh man, I gotta do business like that, like I was doing in the music. Now I gotta do it in the art. It was a bridge to get over at first, because I was like, wait a minute, this is art. You know what I mean? It hit me like, wait a minute. I still have to. I got to grind. And so what happened for me, I was like, okay. But at least I said, okay, I know I'm not a certain kind of person, but if I can just open my mind and go get with some people who can maybe rub a little shoulders with me a little bit, they can at least help me partner. The partnering is important. I think that's underrated, but partnering is so important in terms of when you're not really good at something or you need to learn something, at least start off by getting people around you in your environment that fill in. You got to have a brain to go with the heart, to go with the body. And so that's my whole philosophy, man, is like at least, I can get around some people who can start downloading that on me and I actually do the work and I actually apply the work. And so for me, the characters and all that, I was like, you know what am I going to do? Yeah, you know what, how do I make money from this? It ended up being pretty much the same way with songwriting, producing, whatever. Just make sure of these certain things. At least have the basics locked down. And so for that it was a learning experience, and I'm still learning. And I definitely got to get your book, man. That's for sure. I feel like
thank you.
I got to get your book, man, because I mean, really, I have to really look at how when other people, like even now, you know what I'm saying? I'm not no millionaire, you know what I'm saying? Yes, I'm blessed to do what I do full time, for the last 18 years, thank God. And I'll be able to sow into other people because I at least can hold on to a little bit more of the pie, than other people may would. Like we got $250,000 from a company, and so they advance you that money, but you owe that money back and so forth. And though we were talking about art and characters and stuff like that, it all is a good marriage, and that's why I like your point. It's a good marriage for at least artists to say, hey, if I'm going to do this full time, I'm going to have to build it. It's just not going to happen overnight. To leave nothing to chance if you can. And there's corners you can cut if you can, but you still have to do the best you can do and put your heart into it. And it pays off. At least, Tyler Perry, he's a pretty decent example of how it can pay off, even being a writer, screenplay person, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you this. Since I published a book, I've run into countless writers here in Chicago and on the road. And it's funny because up until Oprah ended her show, every single black person I talked to who wrote a book said, this is really going to take off because, I'm going to get on Oprah. And once everybody finds out about me and I'm on Oprah, I'm on Easy Street.
That's right.
And then when she picked, what was that book? When she picked Great Expectations, because she had all those other authors burn her with all the lies in their books and stuff like that, as she decided to play it safe. I actually ran into a couple of them. I said, well, now that she's picking all these safe books, how do you feel about your chances now? And, a lot of them you never hear from again. And that's the difference that you're presenting, the example that you're presenting is that you're not looking for someone else to propel you. You're looking at how to pull yourself up and get equal with other people. And that's a huge, huge difference. That's a huge difference. And I hope people pay attention to that because, you can't, even me, I put a joke in one of my books because of these people with their dumbass idea about Oprah going to make their life for them. I named an all-women's college outside of Atlanta. I named it Stedman, okay, as a joke. And then the joke was sort of on me because someone went and told Stedman that I did that, and he thought that was the funniest thing in the world, and then I had to send him a free book.
Oh, man.
So, well, you use something like that. But the thing is that it is hard work, and you have to keep at it. And the other thing that creatives have a hard time with is rejection. Have you had to deal with rejection at a level where, you really thought, okay, this one thing, whatever it was, whether it was art, whether it was music, whether it was anything that you do, where you had this one thing where you just thought, oh, man, this is it. I'm on Easy Street because this is no way this can fail. And then for you to have to face up to the reality that it wasn't what you imagined and it wasn't going to turn out into what you had dreamed.
Yeah. Yes, I've dealt with, yes, I mean quite a few times. You have to kind of, and it's kind of like you have to really have the psychology built up and really work on yourself. That's why I say I pray and meditate, and I try to really follow certain spiritual principles, because that was the only way I was able to will and deal with you, man. I'm just be real. People rejecting, that's not going to work. Even before the characters, people, oh, you're not going to go anywhere. You guys are just, even on family members, relatives, man. I mean, it can be a very lonely road, you know, especially now. I mean, I'm not married or anything right now, and I have one son. He's a teenager. He's about to graduate high school. But I didn't go through this all within a relationship. I went through a lot of this by myself, head on, because people look at you and they say, what are you trying to do? You know, when you're really trying to get beyond mediocrity, you get a lot of flack. Everybody thinks they're creative. Honestly, I see some people even on Black Sci-Fi. Man, you got some talented people on there, man, that'll draw and create, you know, as far as artistry, they can do circles around me. That's just keeping it real. As far as my own opinion. Nevertheless, I think, you know what am I going to do? You know, if I'm going to take care of this and this and this, you know, okay, I had to, you know, demo rejected. I had to take my own first records to the record store and put them on consignment. Then I ended up on the charts locally. You know, before people were selling them out the trunk or whatever, I was taking them to the store. And it's always been to where if I was going to wait for somebody to make it happen for me, it never worked out that way. They end up controlling me or it ends up being theirs. You know, I had to redeem. I had a situation with a church I was dealing with. We did a book, a color book. We did some music. We did some other things together. And the pastors, his mate in the church tried to take the whole idea and keep it with the church. Okay. Right. I helped, but me and her and someone else created this concept. And it was real cool, real good, kids involved. The thing was, even that is business because churches are businesses too. So I had to make sure my stuff was lined up, which they didn't know it was lined up. So when they tried to do that, they couldn't do it, which showed me at that time, even back then, brother, that at least some of the footwork you do, it will help you even at the times you least expect it. And so they backed off me. They left me alone. You know what I'm saying? Until this day, I still have my full rights to the project, and the project hasn't gone anywhere. And they had to come back and try to get me involved in the project to relaunch it. And it just goes to show you try to sow the good seeds, man. So for me, it's really like, okay, I got to get this. I had to redeem my group members. We broke up. They tried to take the name. They tried to steal the name from the group. I was like, whoa, what? Managers, and man, you're talking vultures and sharks, man, that have skill. And so it's funny because these situations are in some of the stories that I write and create.
Well, that's good because that there's a certain amount of satisfaction in being able, that's like revenge creativity. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And because somebody says, hey, I heard a little something about something happened with you, a little something about a church, you go, I don't really want to talk about it. But if you read this over here,
right.
There you go,
Yes,
So, I mean, the thing about, there are so many aspects to being a creative, especially one who wants to create something for monetary return. You want to make money off your creativity. There are so many facets to doing well, but the facets to failure are so outweigh what it takes to do. I mean, there are so many paths to failure. Thomas Edison, and I don't know if this is a true anecdote or whatever. It has been said that Thomas Edison tried 2,000 times. 2,000 times before he got a filament that would work right for his light bulb. And somebody said, well, 2,000 times, why didn't you quit? What did you learn from that? And he said, well, I learned that there were 2,000 ways to do this that didn't work. And he didn't let it stop him. And a lot of creatives, when they get short-stopped by something or blindsided by something, they give up.
That's true. That's true. And you know what? That is so profound, man. And that is so profound. That is to me, that's the key to it right there. When they say persistence, hang in there. Hang in there with endurance, because it's a big deal. And I like the fact that you are making it clear in a lot of creatives, which I have a lot of respect for creators, being one myself. You creating Black Sci-Fi and the radio show, you're helping expose this genre of the industry that needs to get out there. The best we can do in return is to try to input and support, what you got going on, because it's actually, we're all still reciprocating, supporting ourselves at the same time. A lot of people want to be an island all by themselves. Everybody's the next Michael. Dude, let's keep it real. There's not everybody ain't the next Michael, you know?
Yeah, I've mentioned this, and it does anger me, but there are far too many creatives in our culture, and I'm talking about Black culture. I don't know about the Japanese because I don't speak the language that well anymore, but there are a lot of people in Black culture who see business, they see life, they see creativity, they see, well, not creativity, but they see commerce as a zero-sum game where there is a finite, fixed amount of dollars out there that everybody is competing for. And if I help STARR RAY out to do something, then I'm picking my own pocket, because those dollars that he gets, I can't get. And that mentality, that mentality angers me so much, because I see it so often. You know, people see other people who do well. You know, I see artists who are great. I mean, you know, and I tell them that, and you know, people ask me, could you read this and tell me what you think? And I read it because I believe that we should be able to help each other. But there's not a lot of that out there. And I was going to ask you, and, you know, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I am very curious about the racial demographics of the kinds of people who helped move you forward versus the kinds of people who kind of maybe either stabbed you in the back or turned you down or ignored you, or, you know what I'm saying? What kind of people have you found as a creative, and you know, as a Black creative? Did you find a lot of encouragement from other Black creatives? You know, like you said, the whole thing about partnering. You know, there's a whole lot of people out there who can't partner because they don't want to cooperate, or they can't partner because they think, somebody's going to steal all my stuff, or they can't partner because they're too selfish, or they can't partner because they can't conceive of cooperating with somebody else and finding out that the separate parts are greater than the whole, or less than the whole, rather. Less than the whole. I meant the exact opposite. So you've got that whole mentality out there. I'm kind of curious about, you know, the people who stood in your way, or the people who turned their back on you, you know, because I know that, man, in any endeavor, you're going to find people like that. But what kind of encouragement have you gotten from our own people?
You know what?
I hope I'm not starting any stuff.
That's powerful, because it's a psychological delusion to think that you can be island among yourself unless you're born into money. They even teach this in the Thinking Grow Rich book. Unless you're born into money with a spoon in your mouth and come from a wealthy family of generations of wealth, you cannot really do it by yourself, because that's a psychological delusion to what the reality of it is. The reality of it is they're all interconnected. Me, myself, I've dealt with racial supremacy, racism, light-skin, dark-skin racism. I've dealt with female against Black male racism. Just going through the business and trying to do what I do. Let me say, doing what I do, with people trying to sabotage me. And that I think that's what really brought in the strength of the characters that I create, because those experiences helped me get those stories out, because there are a lot of little trenches. I've been in the trenches, man. I mean, I've had church pastors, okay, who actually are totally not for the artist, right? But I'm sowing my tithe, I'm paying, man, I'm sowing into the church. I'm in the choir, I'm doing the music, I'm doing the children's ministry, and they won't even announce, right, that I have a book that is created with spiritual characters. Now, we're not talking about no junk. We're not talking about your power being given over to the power of science. We're talking about characters that acknowledge and admit their power comes from God, and the pastor will not even introduce it to the congregation. Or they put me on the side and have me wait a long time. And I'm not all pastors, but some, not all, but this is the kind of thing that doesn't make sense. Then you have our own people in our culture. I have gotten a lot of flack, and it's weird because there are different cliques of black people who act a different way based on what clique you're in. And so I have a lot of love for our people. I have a lot of love for what our people need and what they want to do. The thing is, we have to reciprocate that love to one another. And so a lot of times when I would reach my hand out to help brothers or try to help people, man, I'm going to be honest with you. The first thing is suspicion. You deal with suspicion. You know, I'm dealing with suspicion. I'm dealing with, that can't be real. No, you're up to something. All of that really helped me understand that how interconnected it is, because even myself, if there were other people who actually reached out more, I would actually even be further along. I have to spend more time on our people a lot of times, but it's a different thing because then I have a set of a lot of our people who go out the way to make sure that their kids and themselves have our characters in their home with these positive, inspirational messages. They know we're positive. They know we're not creating junk. They know we're not producing no mess. But it's the fact that, can black people create this? Do you know for the first 10 years of the Pookie and Pandy characters that I own from STARR RAY Tunes, for the first 10 years, they actually did not know I was even an African American until I did an interview on television.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Sorry. That is what helped teach me that it's something going on here. The characters that, can a black guy create this kind of polished characters for children? African-American male, a young guy? Not some old father guy, whatever you want to say. Nothing against older people. I'm just saying, not some old, archaic male. Not Walt Disney. Hello, somebody. No, this guy, they said, I was at a convention. They said, hey, you're STARR RAY? I said, yeah. They said, you're the creator of Pookie and Pandy? I said, yeah. Here I am right here in the newspaper. Yeah. Blown away. Psychologically, it's like culture shock, bro. It was like, but yet, because when they met me as a person, as you said earlier, they said, you know what? We understand why you created that. It does fit who you are.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the thing is that it's the gestalt of American culture obviously is so interwoven with, what black slaves brought to the table, or, Chinese slaves, or even the Irish, anybody, all these people who made up who we are components of an entire culture, and yet you have people who the only thing that they want to do is to be able to try to break it down into separate elements so that they could pit one against another.
That's right.
And it's so sad. But I mean, the thing that I'm kind of getting at a little bit roundabout is that there should be an automatic mechanism for people to help other people to achieve.
Yes, sir.
And we're missing that mechanism. You see it in Latinos in America. In 2040, 2045, they're going to become the majority race in America, white folks are going to become a minority, and you can see they're all upset about that already.
That's true. Right.
And so you have to say to yourself, well, wait a minute. They are non-white come-latelys compared to us. You know,
that's right.
Where are we on that sociological ride to a better experience for our people? And then when you see other people tearing people down, you see and actually getting in the way, sabotaging other people's success, you have to wonder about what's the survivability of that culture. You know, that's a non-survival trait of a culture. So, I mean, your characters, the positivity, and I know that that's a Stevie Wonder word, but I'm going to borrow it from him. But the positivity of your characters and characters who are non-white is a huge thing, because just like the election of Barack Obama gives, I mean, there are kids out there right now who have never lived with a white president. You know, there's little kids out there, 3, 4, 5, years old, 6 years old, and they won't know any different. And think about the fact that when they grew up, the only president of the United States of America that they knew was a black person. I mean, that's a huge thing in terms of
that's powerful.
Providing an example for the possible.
That's right.
So you take your characters doing the exact same thing. This is the possible. This is what can be. This is just as likely and just as viable as a Spider-Man, as a Superman, as any white character, and to be able to have them so that people who look like us can identify it is obviously powerful imagery. And that's the brilliance and the beauty of all of the black creators out there who are doing comic book characters and comic book style literature, because it's so accessible to young kids.
That's right. That's true. That's powerful, man. You broke it down. That is powerful, and that is exactly that's exactly the point and the key behind what we want to do. And so, therefore, people. It's funny because even some other black creators that I've run across, I got much love for them, but there's misunderstandings in terms of they say all your characters. With the serious characters, okay, most of them are diverse and black cultural characters, whatever. They said, but where does the other characters, the bears and the other characters you created that are not even really animals, come in? So I would get funny looks sometimes because they're like, are you doing like children's books? Or are you doing comic books or graphic novels? And I let them know it's STARR RAY characters, because even the spirit of the characters that are not necessarily human or not necessarily African American or Caucasian, they are still of the same spirit, and they are still of the same creation. And so that's what I like about what you're saying, man. The objective for us with the STARR RAY characters is like with Spiritual Warrior. Spiritual Warrior, if you didn't know the story, you would know he was an African American first before he transformed and became Spiritual Warrior, because you can't see what race he is by looking at him. Nevertheless, behind that, it is still the same spirit and essence of that man that is African American, strong, powerful, noble, realistic, deal with challenges, behind, inside of that Spiritual Warrior who is taking on a legacy from other warriors before him because of his responsibility to the mission. And so, therefore, it's like, oh, well, that concept alone, a lot of people say, oh, he's a black guy? It's like, yeah, he's a black guy behind there. But it only matters if you're that kind of person. And so the kids are like, oh, it's just the image within itself. And so the thing with support, I encourage all of the people listening, people who will hear this in the future, people who will hear this tomorrow, we have to support one another if we're going to survive, even as an industry, because I think black sci-fi within itself is an industry. And it's growing and expanding. I think it's wonderful, and I actually am honored to be a part of it because no one is opening doors to give us this kind of platform. So we have to support you and reciprocate in return what you're doing for us. And that's just keeping it real, man. There's no way I can not get your book. You should be in my library. I have family members who know what I've been doing for 10 years, and they have no idea. They don't even own a CD that I produce, which is really sad.
Yeah, I actually, well, no, I didn't want to tell that story. Just so that you know, basically, I tell the story of what happens in America when they find out that black folks have been secretly living on the backside of the moon since before Neil Armstrong got there. So I had a lot. I'm having a lot of fun with that. I got 2 out of the 3 of a trilogy done, but my stuff aside, you know, I write for a different reason or a different base cause than what you are doing, because what I'm doing is I'm taking America today. Okay, I'm taking exactly where we are today, sociologically, racially, politically, militarily, and what I'm doing is I put a premise. What would happen in America if they found black folks living on the backside of the moon? And they'd been up there for 40 years, 50 years. And I am taking what I think would actually happen in America if that happened. And the fact of the matter is that America is not a level playing field for anyone who is not wealthy. Let's get over the whole racial thing, because it's not a matter of race. A lot of people, people have done a good job. And when I say people, I mean people who manipulate our media and things like that. People have done a good job in keeping us apart. Okay, pointing out the differences. Oh, everything's a black-white thing. Oh, we got a black president. We got this. We got, and then you have people who are so stupid as they think, well, we must be in a post-racial America because we have a black president. And I'm going, well, look at the alternatives. Even if people chose because of the lesser of 2 evils, that doesn't mean we're post-racial. Okay.
That's right.
And one thing that I really love about the election and re-election of President Obama is that once and for all, if people pay attention, once and for all, his election and his re-election has destroyed the notion of white exceptionalism in this country. Because in two nationwide contests, the best man for the job was a black man.
Wow, Wow. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's wow.
So when I think about my writing and I think about what needs to be said from my perspective, you're providing great role models. What I'm providing is a view of this country that I don't think very many people have revealed. I don't think very many people have dealt with. And another thing in my writing is, we've had since Martin Luther King Jr., Medgar Evans, all of those those greats who really wanted to see a better America, who really wanted to see people judged by the content of the character and not the color of their skin. My contention is it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. We're not going to have that we shall overcome moment until we are either all the same color or until we face up to the fact that it's not going to happen and maybe we should go our separate ways.
That is so man.
Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that.
I totally agree. I am 110 on that. I totally agree. And that's what the key about what's going on and what you're doing and what everybody, that's it. If they can just face the truth on that particular thing, some people get upset because they're not accepted. Okay, I had a team member. I have an internship program at Westwood College out in Anaheim area, right across the street from Angel Stadium. And we had an internship student who actually learned that we were not trying to go out the way to be accepted. This is the situation. He said, hey, well, what happens if you guys don't sell so many copies in L.A. or in the United States and in the States. I said, hey, check this out, man. There's India, China, Japan, Nigeria. I said, do you know they're not all living in huts? These people have dollars. There are princes and kings around the world. These princes have dollars. What is wrong with blowing up in India? What is wrong with blowing up in only Japan? If you can just blow up in one area, why are you so concentrated on Hollywood? Hollywood itself is going all out abroad. Every time you turn around, they're doing a movie in some new area in some other continent. So, brother, I told him, I said, man, our focus is wherever it's working. Once again, trying to think in a business aspect. If you're blowing up in Nigeria, why are you crying because nobody's giving you $2 in America? I said, bruh, go to Nigeria. Take it to Nigeria. You can do it around the world now. Why not? And so psychologically, the issue was because you're not being accepted by the so-called dominant society, it should put a damper and a cloud over what you feel about being successful.
Or that you are automatically not a success. You know, I've interviewed people, other black creatives who have created, you know, really intricate, popular, speculative universes in comic book form, and just like the jazz, just like Quincy Jones, just like, you know, all of the jazz greats from 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, they blew up in some other country before they had any level of acceptance or acknowledgement of their worth in this country. You know, Quincy Jones was huge in Europe before he came back here. I mean, you know, the whole you know, well, anyway. So yeah, and the other thing is that the internet has become a great equalizer. The internet gives you reach that even, you know, that 20 years ago was unimaginable. I mean, there are people who exist on the internet as creatives who common culture, you know, American culture, may never discover.
That's
until some white guy goes, you know, we need a new idea, and it won't be a new idea. It'll be stealing an old idea that somebody else has had for years.
That's true. That's right.
Okay. And the other thing, you know, it's really too bad that so many people have this whole mindset about Hollywood being someplace where you have to make it in order to have made it. But I will say this every show if I have to. You know, Hollywood's where you go for your dreams to die. Okay, because you want to talk about an industry that is geared 100% toward stealing your intellectual property. That's
right.
That's the entire business model of Hollywood, is stealing other people's intellectual. Oh. Hello?
That's right. Yes, sir. Yeah. That's right.
So
that's absolutely correct.
But you're right about the fact that, okay, if you don't make it in Anaheim, BFD. You know, we've got South America. We've got the Pacific. Look how many black comic books are burning up the joint over in the Pacific Rim.
Hello.
And nobody knows a damn thing about them here in America.
Nope, sure don't. Nope, you're absolutely correct. Yep. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's circle back around to where you are today. You've got the artwork. You mentioned you're fortunate enough that your musical work is still popular enough that you get royalties off of it, which helps augment an income that allows you the luxury of a certain amount of creativity that you might not be able to get to as easily. Where do you think you're going to be, let's say 5 years from now? What are you looking to see as maybe a different accomplishment or even a continuation of what you're doing right now?
Where I see myself in about, 5 years is taking, you say about 5 years, right?
Yeah, let's go 5 years out.
Okay. Where I see myself is I see that I've developed the business, built the business on a platform, from each of the three levels of its aspects. I see myself merchandising toys. Currently, the Imagination Station Studio, which is what I created for my small creative team, was to be able to have a means to be able to produce light manufacturing and do a lot of in-house work, right in the studio with the creative team, with the work of, with the processes of ingenuity. And so we have the computers, we have creative, we have our artists. We know it's only maybe like 6 of us. We're still recruiting, but it's only like 6 of us. A lot of people who, share the same vision. And from that studio, we wanted to have a means of production. So I see myself taking that pretty far as being able to do my own, have my small factory, being able to produce my own toys, being able to make sure I continue the control of my merchandise and that type of thing. I see myself doing licensing deals, or have already had done at least 3 or 4 of them within that time, where we're doing sheets, pillowcases, interface things or whatever, phone carriers or whatever, with the characters. I see us really working on a lot of young people and people that's even listening now. Anyone who's really wants to take the art to the next level, I see us helping to educate some of those people, maybe do a lot of consulting and that aspect. I also see Spiritual Warrior and some of the characters of the STARR RAY Characters universe becoming an interactive game, just like the Big Dog, doing a full-blown game with the characters, except using a different principle and concept other than just shooting to kill or whatever the case may be, using where people have to actually really use their mind, people have to look more into different parts of themselves to get through the game. I see myself, even maybe being blessed to do a feature film, maybe doing, doing The New World as a film, maybe doing a Tales of the Star Side as a film, and most definitely producing the music and the theme scores, on a more platonic, or should I say, evolved level with what I'm doing. That's what I see myself doing.
I mean, again, having the business background that you have, your path for success is probably much more assured than people who don't have, who have not paid as much attention to the nuts and bolts of the business of doing business. And the fact that you want to go out and help other people do those kinds of things is huge. It sounds like you want to share your knowledge and try to help other people, other entrepreneurs achieve. And that's a good thing, man. There's no two ways about it. Now, what about? No. Look at what you've done so far. It's, I'm not anything that's not true. What about community outreach to kids? Do you have? And again, I don't ask to put you on the spot, but obviously there's an affinity here with your work. Do you see? What do you see in terms of maybe working with kids? Image positive kind of role models, creativity, things like that.
Oh man, kids, man. I've always, even as a kid, man, I always loved things about childhood, and I worked with kids. I usually actually when I would tour, we would do school tours. And we were the only entertainers who would come to those schools from Bakersfield all the way up through Sacramento that would put on a show for kids. And so my heart is really with kids. We did a song called 3D. Back then, we was 3D, Don't Do Drugs. And so we took our entertainment into the into the auditoriums, and we put on a show where kids were being educated and entertained. We call it entertainment, but that is my heart. I've always, even in high school, I've always wanted to help kids. And even now, we do the Imagination Station presentation, as well as, I actually go out and I talk to kids about STARR RAY characters. I put on a little small kind of a lecture thing, but they get to draw and express themselves, and we give, like, you know, lessons and different things, and kind of introduce the industry to them in the classroom. I mean, people from Disney ain't calling them back to come in, and so, you know, Pixar, you know, all of those guys, you know, they're small. I mean, big, but they're small in terms they don't have enough people to do that. So we try to fill that gap, and I want to sow into young people. That's my heart, man. You hit my heart. If people were to look at Captain Kidd, which is one of our characters, a 7.5-year-old Black positive kid superhero who's actually, you know, in the classroom in the real world, stories like that. That's a book we did in 1998, 1997, 1999. We took those characters into the school with the show. And so, man, that's my heart, brother, the kids.
That's pretty cool. You know, I'm going to keep track of you and talk to you about some other things later. There's place, society.com gathering place. Right now there's over 3,000 members. And out of 3,000 members, if you get even 10 that work on a dream together, that's a pretty substantial, pretty powerful group, because 10 people can do an awful lot. You know, Absolutely, man. Especially, I told my team, I said, I met Jarvis, man. I met some Black Sci-Fi people. I said, this brother, I mean, I'm not even trying to toot your horn. I'm just keeping it real. I said, this brother right here is for real. He understands. To me, you remind me of Bob Lasseter and all the people who, when no one was doing it, somebody saw that need and actually did it, though. I see other cats doing some stuff, but a lot of them are unreachable. They're like, even some of them are prejudiced. They got these weird politics. They don't even have bad communication skills. I said, you know what? This brother ain't like that. And then somebody on my team said they talked to you on Facebook, and you guys were talking about some things, and they came back telling the team, hey, I talked to this guy, da-da-da-da-da. I said, I got to meet this dude, man. We got to work together on some stuff, man. Well, he's put together. I mean, this is a gathering place. I think when I joined, there were maybe less than 2,000 people, and that was just a handful of years ago. And I was extremely lucky.
Hello. Did I lose you?
Sorry about that. I got dropped.
All right, hold on just a moment. We're having a little technical difficulty. We'll be back in just a few moments.
And I could tell jokes, but they're all dirty. Although I do have a clean one. No, I better not. I'll get this out of the way. We've got about 15 minutes to go. Hopefully we'll be getting everybody. Yeah, I know, no dirty jokes. Yeah. We'll be getting STARR back. But first of all, I want to thank everybody who does tune into this show, whether it's live or as a podcast, because finding out a lot about the creatives that we do have at BlackScienceFictionSociety.com is an important part of learning who our community is.
Right.
Are you back, STARR? Okay. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sorry about that. I don't know. I think the connection clicked off for a sec.
Well, same thing for me. I mean, we both got blasted off at the same time.
All that positive energy, huh?
Well, I mean, going back to what you were talking about, this is a pretty unique community. I've been looking around, since I published my first book to try to find, affinity communities of Black speculative fiction, of science fiction, of fantasy, all of the various flavors of the genre, to see what's out there, and this is a pretty unique gathering place.
Yes, it is.
So obviously it is the hope that this grows and just keeps growing and growing, and accumulating more and more features, accolades, things like that, and having the example of people like you is huge. I was just saying before you came back, this is a podcast. This will last as long as we have it online, and people can click on there and they can hear all about everything that you and I talked about. Okay, they can find out. They can find your work. They can listen to your ethic. They can understand you as not only a creative, but someone who has a measured view of the business of doing business, which is not as common as it used to be, or as it could be. So this is a good gathering place. And again, I'm glad you landed here, and all of this is working out the way it has. Just so that we got about 14 minutes left in the show. Is there anything you want to discuss about what you do, where you are, and even where you've been, how you got to where you are, that we haven't touched on yet?
You know what? Yes, I'd like to speak on the idea of being involved in stage production, and how that all comes back down to the four squares of the page. It's weird because it started with the four squares of the page with my journey, just my life in general. I don't even really, I'm not the kind of person, I don't talk much about myself and stuff like that. I'm kind of kick back, mellow, but I'm very passionate about what you're talking about and what this is about, and it brings out something in me that I really enjoy. I enjoy situations like this and having the opportunity to even share, because sharing is really the cornerstone of the community, and for me, this is all, it's just, if more people would do what you're doing, Black Sci-Fi is doing, Jarvis and the whole crew, I think that we could really support each other, and it won't be such a bumpy road, and that's kind of like my whole thing, man. The characters, it's my love, it's my joy. It led to where I am now. I'm glad to still be doing music. I'm working on a soundtrack right now. We're looking for voiceover actors, and mainly, hopefully get some kids as well. We got about 10 kids, but we need some more to, do some of the scripting. We're working on a storyboard right now, for Tales of the Star Side. The supernatural characters is what is in relation to Black Sci-Fi. We have the tunes and we have the caricatures, but the Black Sci-Fi is really a platform to help us with the supernaturals.
Two things. Do you do much work with conventions, and when you do your community outreach, is it like panels? Do you do panel discussions and things like that where people can actually come meet you and kind of, you can do a little quality one-on-one time with them, in the effort of moving on and doing these newer projects?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I do panel discussions. I go out and I speak and I talk about what's going on. And I also do, where I can really engage, people who want to get into the industry or just learn about the industry, and also engage in, actually, because I'm an art director. I'm an art and project director anyway. So conventions, I haven't done a lot of big conventions with STARR RAY characters, because we just now really, let me tell you, the shows we've been doing are the fair circuits. We've been doing stuff like children's families entertainment shows. And so this is still like a new bridge over into the era with the sci-fi shows. And so I haven't gotten to do the sci-fi shows. I haven't even done the Black Age yet. I've heard about it and da-da-da-da. So we're still new in that retrospect. but the actual work it still has a little bit of experience behind it. So, we would love to go to, events and show up and, talk to the kids, talk to other comic writers. We like to do the booth thing. We have all the stuff it takes to do the booth in our storage. It's just we just now launching, so to speak, and that type of thing. So a lot of my stuff has been, I just did a TV show, Pasadena Media. We did a 4-part series. It's supposed to be in one. We did a 4-part series. And so I'm on TV talking about the characters and the anniversary, and also as well as, doing different events with outreach. I go to different juveniles and stuff, and I go to churches. I go to foster care things, and I speak, and I talk to the kids. Because a lot of them are artists who just need an outlet.
Well, when you do that, let me remind you to do that, because I know you're fairly new to the site. There is an events calendar at BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website, and when you know you're going to do an appearance, go ahead and put it up on the calendar, and that does two things. First of all, it kind of is blasted out to everybody that you've got something that's coming out, but it gives people an opportunity who may be in the area who might not have thought about running into you to come by and see you. So I would ask that, when you have events, go ahead and post them up, okay?
Oh, I sure will. Nice, excellent. I sure will.
And if you come to anything here in Chicago, I'll buy you lunch.
Hey, that's
I'm
cool.
serious. I'm serious.
I would love to go, man. I've never been there yet. We've been talking about it. I haven't even been to New York yet, man. A lot of places we've gone. I mean, I've been to Japan. I just haven't been back east. I'm actually kind of new to back east, other than when I was touring out there. That would be great, man. That would be great.
Chicago's pretty good. It's a lot better than New York. I just said that to get a rise out of the New York listeners. But right. No, I mean we have the convention C2E2, which will be coming up in April, and a lot of BSFS people are planning to attend. So I'm going to try to see if we can all get together and have lunch together or something like that. But again, that's all in service of getting people to meet each other so that we can do bigger things later. It's so much easier to collaborate with somebody once you know them, once you trust them, you and I are very similar in temperament. You and I will end up doing very similar things in life in terms of, community outreach or how we deal with the public. But our power comes when we meet and we actually cooperate, because people don't realize that when two people are doing something, it's not just 1 + 1. It's a whole new gestalt of capability that exists that didn't exist before.
That's right. That's absolutely correct. That's right. Yep, I agree. I agree with that 110 on that too. And we meet you, we get to, because we teach our team that if you can't, interns come in, we let them know they have to sign the confidentiality agreement, letting them know if you cannot work in a team environment and cooperate with under individuals, there's no way. How talented you are doesn't matter. If you can't work in a team environment, you're never going to make it in this industry.
Well, and the other thing is, if you violate people's trust in you, you're not going to. You may get lucky, and something cool may happen to you, but the same people who you screwed are always going to be around.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, I'm just being honest. For people who think, if I just kind of, I had this thing going with STARR RAY, like your pastor. Maybe if I could just take this on my own, and people don't forget. You may run into a very Christian-like person who will forgive you, but people don't forget. And once you've lost somebody's trust, it's pretty much gone.
That's
anyway,
true.
And that's the other thing about dealing with kids. For people who do really good community outreach with children, the one thing that I think that if you're paying attention, you will find out, and I don't mean you, I mean the editorial you, is that kids are 100%, 200%, maybe 250% BS detectors. They can tell right away when you're shining them on, when you are lying, when you are, And the thing is, this is why children get cynical. This is why they behave, they act out. Because if they have no trust, if their trust has been taken away, there's nothing else for them to fall back on. So for you to go out and to help these kids is a pretty cool thing. And I'm gratified to hear that you do that, because you have so much to offer them. Even to telling them, look, if you're going to do this, or you're going to do this comic, if you two are going to do this thing together, here's some things you should look out for. And then just give them the skinny on what they should do. They don't get that kind of advice. They don't get that in school. They don't get that after school. A lot of parents don't know to tell them that. So it's good that somebody with your experience is out there doing that. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that, man. That's for sure. We definitely, the young people, you're absolutely correct. In fact, I have to say thanks to the young people that have been they drag their parents over to the booth and stuff like that. And I'm going to share this with you. The guy, one of the people who put on Comic-Con, and he puts on one called ApeCon, me and this guy got in a pretty good debate about why isn't there a section solely for the young people. I had my nephew and my son with me. We went to the event. There are people there who are dressed in a way that my son and my nephew couldn't see. And I told him, I said, hey, I thought you guys was da-da-da-da-da-da. And, man, I said, you guys need a section just for the kids, because some of this stuff you think is kid appropriate, it really isn't. But those events are supposed to be for the whole family. So I just want to share that with you to kind of, give some accolades on that piece, man. It's places I can't even take my kids now, my son and my nephew, who I'm with a lot, to places like this, man, because some of the stuff is really not. You can't take kids around it. And even in some of the conventions, some of these books, they're just like totally personally irresponsible as far as what the kids are reading. We don't need a bunch of that no more. We need more like stuff we grew up on that's still wholesome enough where you don't have to sit there and watch it with them.
That is true. That is true. But there are some Black age conventions that are very kid friendly, and an effort, a serious effort is made to make sure that they stay that way. But you're right, when you talk about the big conventions, Comic-Con, you go there and the way some of the people dress, it's like, well, how come you didn't take your pajamas off before you came to the show?
Exactly. Oh man, yeah. That's just keeping it 110. That's real. That's real,
yeah,
man.
But it's good that you are aware enough and you're sensitive enough to that everything that you do is child friendly, because they need to have their imaginations fueled and stimulated as much as anybody.
That's right. That's right. And I can say that I'm thankful for at least the comic books I did grow up on. At least I can say, I didn't have to really deal with that much. Nowadays it's different, but when I was younger, I could read Spider-Man, all of those guys as much as I wanted to, man, and didn't have to really worry about it. No, neither did my grandmother. She didn't have to worry about me. Yeah.
Yeah, back then, at least in my era, I hate to do that again, but no. But I mean, the worst thing we had to deal with was the heavy metal comics. You know what I mean?
Oh.
And the ones from Tijuana, but those were, those were hard to get. We're winding down to about 2 minutes left. Anything else you want to impart before we turn it over to Jarvis so he could say his goodnight?
You know what? I just want to say thanks a lot to you guys for letting me come on the show, man. I'm going to keep up with Black Sci-Fi, and I appreciate all the listeners who tuned in. And I hope other people who tune in, I hope they enjoy the show, and I hope they really support what you guys are doing, because we're committed. We're going to support as much as we can and do the best we can do, me and my little small team. And so you guys keep doing what you guys are doing, and all you guys out there, people creating, hey, man, do your thing, man, but, try to take care of your business.
Yes, absolutely. And let's see. Well, let me tie things up here, and then hang on after we stop recording. I want to do a brief chat with you. But for those of you who are listening, whether it's live or in the podcast, of course, this show is on every Friday evening at 9 p.m. Eastern time, and it's follow the clock. So I do it at 8 o'clock in my time zone. And tell your friends about it. something that we're doing, BlackScienceFictionSociety.com is producing its first full feature movie. Please stop by BlackScienceFictionSociety.com. Check out the information about Earth Squadron, where we all need your help to make this a reality. And it's something that everybody who's involved in the project is very excited about. And so on behalf of STARR RAY, if I could say that, and myself, I want to wish you good night. And Jarvis, what you got?
Hey, man, I'm going to just keep it simple as always. I want to thank everyone for participating on the show. That host, that people that shared this on the internet with other people, that's people that's in the chat room, and people just listening. What we're doing is really important and really needed in our community. And I want to continue to thank everyone for supporting that thought. And then also, as William pointed out, we're working on our first independent 3D film. You know, we're always talking about what black people should be doing and could be doing and things of that nature now. When people do it, they need your support. Otherwise, you know, things die or, you know, people lose. People put their entire life and soul into these products that people ask for. And so let's honor them by, and not just our project, but comics, books in general. People are really putting their life out here on the line to provide you with what you said that you wanted. So let's support them. And I want to thank everybody once again and have a good night. And I'm going to shut it down in just a few minutes. And, yeah, we'll stick around a little bit after. I can't stay that long because I have to take Junior to practice early in the morning tomorrow.
All right, man. Well, thanks a lot, Jarvis. Thank you, Star, and we'll catch you all on the next show next Friday. Good night.
All right.
For sure. Thanks a lot, guys.
You're welcome. Thank you. 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 You're welcome. Thank you.